step out of that system and put my savings in something that can't be printed. And the three things that naturally come to mind are Bitcoin, gold, and silver. So, and I think what's happening is just more and more people are coming to, they're choosing box number B. Okay, I get it. I know what's going on, and they're not going to fix it, so I better be over here. So, it could get kind of crazy. I mean, I think when Bitcoin takes out 73, I think this cycle, I agree with Max's numbers. I think we're easily going to be in the high 200s, within 6 to 12 months. So, and I don't think, there are a lot of people saying gold is at 30 or 2,700 now. And I'll be saying, it's going to go back to 2,000. It's just, it's just a spurt. It'll come back in. And I strongly disagree. I think gold's going to 3,000 or 4,000 on its way to much higher, for a variety of reasons. So, those are the kind of the signposts that I think we should all be watching. The other one is the debt market. I mean, if we continue to see the long debt rates, interest rates go higher, that will mean that there are fewer buyers of the debt. And I suspect, all this at some point is going to create tight financial conditions that the Federal Reserve is going to have to create an excuse and react to. And, the reaction will be what they have always done in the past, which is they will cut interest rates and they will initiate QE and print money. And then if it gets bad enough, they'll initiate yield curve control and say, and they knew where it was. And it was centralized. It was in central bank vaults. I mean, they could lie about what they had, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is a different animal. So I'm not too worried about it, but I hear, I'm sympathetic to the fear that it has and could be manipulated. And don't get me wrong. I mean, there will be people who will try to, trade around it and push it in a certain direction. But my sense is they're going to get wrecked. I mean, if you're short Bitcoin right here, and the God candle arrives, as Samson says it's coming, I agree he's right. You could get wrecked really quickly. And I mean, Caitlin thinks that there's a chance that, some bank will be on the wrong side of the Bitcoin trade and a GSIB will get wrecked at some point. I don't know if she's right, but it could happen. I mean, you don't want to be short an asset that can go up 100 or 200% in a matter of months. And this thing can do that, right? So it's a different animal.
It seems like what we have now is the internet and social media and websites where you can make it really transparent. If there's like paper Bitcoin, you can make like really public if there's something wrong and it's seeable.
I think that's right. And you're starting to see even, like I really applaud Alex Leishman and River and what they're doing where they're allowing, kind of proof of reserves. I mean, it's, and one of the things I think is kind of a weakness. I think it's a weakness that so many people are custodian at Coinbase. I mean, I don't trust Coinbase. And so, the paper Bitcoin Larry thing, because I think he benefited unfairly from the fiat system, but he's not a fool. And he looked at it, did the analysis, and came to the conclusion, well, I've either got to, join this thing or be wrong. And he decided to join, and so he now believes. And I think that's the process that takes place with any kind of a new innovation. There's initial skepticism. For some very legitimate reasons. And then as the skepticism is overcome, you see more and more adoption. And then, 10 or 15 years from now, I mean, my kids, you when you're older, a lot of other people, it'll just be self-evident. Like, of course this thing was going to work. And I had the same thing in the internet. I mean, okay, you can hook these computers up, you can send emails. Who cares? Who wants to do that? It's not really that important a thing, Krugman says the fax machine. Well, yeah, okay, but yes, you're right. It's a little slow, and you got to dial up now, and it's annoying. But guess what? It's going to get better. And I mean, here we are, X number of years later, and you and I are talking halfway around the world from one another in real time, video conferencing, something that used to be extremely expensive. I mean, the implications of the technology and how it's changing our world. I mean, you just can't ignore these things. And to me, this is just the internet 2.0. I mean, and arguably it's even bigger and more important because the internet was dealing with information and communication, which is damn important. But this is dealing with money. This is dealing with a base layer, the thing that we all need. I mean, you can Dan Oliver's chart from Mermacan Capital of the behavior of the Weimar mark against the dollar, or against gold during the Weimar thing. We should find it and put it in the show notes. Okay. I'll send it to you. We put it in the show notes. But the bottom line is that even though the Deutschmark was going to zero against gold, there were months where gold did very poorly compared to the Deutschmark. In other words, it was a very volatile process of, big swings of ups and downs, all trending toward the failure of the Deutschmark, where it took X billion Deutschmarks, they were worthless, right? But on any, just in one given month, I mean, and I read the history of the period. There were times when the German government would come out and say something along the lines of, no, we're going to stop printing, we're going to raise interest, everything's going to be okay. And bingo, gold would fall and the Deutschmark would rally. But of course, then they wouldn't do what they said they were going to do, and the next month it would go in the other direction. And so the point I'm trying to make is, I mean, here's an example, Ron. If the dollar really starts to fail and Bitcoin goes to 500,000, and then the government announces some program, well, no, we're going to cut expense, we're going to do, and everyone's like, oh shit, and they believe them. Bitcoin could go from 500,000 back down to 200,000, right? And that's a hell of a lot of volatility. But then everyone, at the 200,000, it becomes clear that what the government said really isn't true, and they can't do it, and so it goes from 200,000 to 800,000. You follow what I'm saying? In other words, you can get these really wide swings on the way to it going to 10 million. Stuff's going to get worse. That's almost a certainty. Whether we get to the big print or not, I don't know. But the monetary conditions are going to get worse, and Bitcoin's going to break out from the 73. And every time it hits a high and goes down, and when it went from 73 to 25, Bitcoin's dead. It's never going to work. All the skeptics, etc. But every time it takes out an old all-time high and everybody's in a profit position, it's like, oh my God, here we go again. And so when we take out 73 and we head towards, I'd say the peak of this next cycle might be 200, 250. There's just going to be a whole new group of converts who are going to go, oh shit, I was wrong. I got to get in on this. And of course, sadly, some of them will buy in at 250 right before it corrects down to 150. And that's what will happen. Yeah, so I'd say we're in 97, and that's why I think the next 3 years will be very exciting.
One interesting chart that I saw today was the Google trends versus the Google the Bitcoin price, and you kind of see the correlation usually a little bit, but right now we're at this like still low in the Google trends, like almost nobody seems to search it, but we're at almost an all-time high of Bitcoin. Is that all institutional ETF money, companies buying it, and the retail is still completely asleep?
That's the dial-up phase. Those were the really early days. I mean, it started off at 1,200 baud, which I can assure you was extremely slow. I mean, just sending text took forever. So,
I was born in 98. So when I got the first computer, I already had Google there. I already had like the nice interface there. Right. The only thing that was still with me was the fear of your phone being connected to the internet, because this charges a big bill. Yes, that was my fear.
Well, way back when, and that was before you guys had broadband too. Yeah, broadband made a big difference. I mean, each of these developments just pushed us down the road, and they just keep on coming. And that's the beautiful thing about technology. I mean, one of the things I say, and I talk about this a lot in the book, what's going to save us here is technology. I mean, we built this big centralized world with a bunch of bad people controlling it, and they've stolen from us, and they've set up a system to benefit themselves at our expense. And technology is going to save us. We've got the internet. The New York Times can't tell me what to think anymore. I can listen to Joe Rogan. So the internet gave us freedom of information and freedom of speech, and connected us all together, and allowed you and I to do things like we're doing right now. Most exciting parts of Bitcoin. The side benefit is that we're all going to get rich, and that's good too. But that's a side effect, not the main effect.
This is super interesting for me when I talk about nation state adoption, because I kind of don't want them to buy Bitcoin now.
Yeah, right. You don't want them to have power, right? Yeah, no. Look, I mean, if you really think longer term, I mean, there's an argument that, I mean, what are nation states for? I mean, there was. They arose to defend property, and they arose to defend wealth, and they arose to create privilege for the people at the top of them. And one could argue that obviously much flatter systems, I think, would be much better. There's substantial argument for that, and I think the decentralization of governments, that I'm all for that. I mean, I think I'm not a complete anarchist. I mean, I think there is. I think most civilized human beings would agree that having some government structure makes sense from a protecting life and liberty and property. I like having police officers. I like having courts. I like thinking that criminals will be punished. And I'm certainly willing to pay my fair share of the taxes to have those things occur. But beyond that, I kind of look at government and I go, okay, everything else you're doing, no, not really interested in that. let's just stick to the life, liberty, and safety and rule of law. That's all, and if somebody said you got to pay 20% of your income to make sure coin. So, if you own those things, you got half the battle lit. So, it's simple.
Absolutely. A question that each and every one of my guests get is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Oh, from Bitcoin. I don't know. I've talked a bit about on other podcasts. I'll mention it too because it's kind of one of my big things. I post my workouts on web, or on Twitter, which people think are nuts. But and I'm 67, so one of the things I guess I would say is that for the listeners who are over 40, I mean, I've observed the decay of the human body as you age, and you don't have to worry about this in your 20s, but it gets steeper each decade, right? And so, when I started the decade of my 50s, it got too steep. And so I kind of got nuts about investigating how I arrested that and could change that. And so I discovered CrossFit. So I'm a big proponent. I guess the one thing I would suggest to people is anybody over 45, 50 who hasn't figured out what their exercise program is going to look like for the balance of their lives, they're doing themselves a disservice. And so there's a book I recommend to everybody. It's an absolute must-read book. It's called Younger Next Year. It's by Chris Crowley. And it describes the story of a guy who was in the same boat I was in his 50s, which is he was starting at flying. And thank God whoever it is did it. I mean, that's all I have to say. And I think the prior guest also asked if it was George. He also asked if you knew who it was, would you tell everybody? And the answer is no. I kind of don't want to know, and I kind of don't want to tell everybody. I don't think it's important. I think the important thing is that we have it, and we should recognize it for what it is. I mean, it's it's weird. I mean, I'm spiritual. I almost feel like it's divinely given to us. I mean, it really is kind of an amazing thing. I mean, I don't think people fully understand the scale of what happened when the white paper was published. They will come to see it over time, but I think today, it'd be as though, I don't know, we were around when the printing press got made, and first of all, most people were illiterate. And second of all, only monks could, translate or copy the Bible, and compare that to where we are today. Literally everyone can read and you can get information instantly. I imagine, there were probably similar events around the crucifixion of Christ. I mean, people at the time didn't really understand what it was or what it meant, but, look at what happened. So it's a big deal. I mean, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but I am saying it's a big, big, big deal. The invention of true digital scarcity. And that's the way I describe it. I think more people should describe it that way.